Well, first of all, Mark, thank you and ABC for hosting the debate tonight. Mr. Garvey, thank you. It's good to see you for being here as well. We're meeting at a precarious moment in California history when it's Padres won, Dodgers won. But also
this is like a World Series press conference.
Time because Californians are struggling to get by with food costs and rent costs and the cost of medicine. Our democracy is struggling. We have someone who wants to be a dictator on day one running for president. We have
there you go again.
The rights of millions of women have been taken away. So it's a precarious moment. We need leaders that can stand up to bullies. We need leaders who can stand up to the NRA. I would support an assault weapons ban. I would support extended and universal background checks. I would support a ban on extended ammunition clips and my own bill, which would strip away the NRA's immunity from liability. Mr. Garvey was asked just a couple of weeks ago if he would support any gun control measure, and his answer was an unequivocal no. That is not what Californians are looking for. Californians want a leader like Dianne Feinstein who will stand up to the NRA.
All right, Kristen Z, next question.
Congressman Schiff, last week temperatures in the Bay Area were 30 degrees above normal. San Francisco hit 97 degrees. That's the highest October temperature in some 30 years almost. These conditions have become more common across California, and they increase the threat of wildfires. What specific policies would you push to make our state more resilient to climate change and devastating wildfires and other disasters?
I've been meeting with people around the state who can't get insurance for their homes or the businesses because of the threat of fire. Communities that have been wiped out, lives lost. We had the tragic accidents recently involving California firefighters. The loss of life has been terrible. And there are a number of steps that we can take to address this crisis. First and foremost, we have to address climate change. We have to aggressively incentivize renewable energy, move us away from fossil fuels, which are causing the planet to heat up and setting states like California on fire. Here I disagree again with Mr. Garvey, who says he's got an oil-first policy of opening the spigots. That is not the answer to climate change. We also need to use technology to fight fires. As chair of the Intelligence Committee, I helped get funding to make sure we used overhead assets to identify incipient blazes so that we could put them out before they spread. I've also worked to allow nighttime helicopter airdrops of water, a policy that the Forest Service refused to use for years.
Mr. Garvey. Climate change.
Well, let me say this first. Mr. Schiff has been a congressman for 24 years. And we've debated over 3.5 hours prior to this. And over these 24 years, the policy he's going to talk about tonight, the policies, he hasn't been able to do anything about it. Think about this, 24 years addressing existential problems in this country and never being able to cure the problems. And that's why the state is standing up now, its people, and saying it's time for change. But I think what is important is, in a federal position like the U.S. Senate, that we start to work to clear out the brush that really is the igniting point for many of these fires around the state of California. I was just up in Northern California at the Vern fire and saw the devastation, what can happen and could happen. All these things he mentions have been done time and time again, but he never has an answer.
Gabriella, your question for Mr. Garvey.
Gentlemen, nice to see you again. California leads the nation when it comes to access to reproductive health care. We even have laws that protect non-California residents that come to our state to seek an abortion. Please explain your position on a woman's reproductive rights and abortion, and whether you would support a federal ban if it comes before the Senate.
I said this on day one almost a year ago, October 10th, that as the next elected U.S. Senator from California, I pledge to support the voice of Californians, and they have a bill, a constitutional bill, for abortion, and I pledge to support that. Now, I am a Catholic. I believe in life. I believe in life at conception. I believe God breathes a soul into these fetuses. So I steadfast in terms of my policies on abortion and also the pledge to support all the people of California.
Mr. Schiff?
Gabriella, reproductive freedom is a human right. It shouldn't be denied to Californians. It shouldn't be denied to women anywhere in the country. I'm going to fight, as I have in the past, for a national right to abortion law so that women make reproductive decisions. We've already seen so many cases where women have had to go from one state to another to seek emergency care, some who have died along the way. And Californians are expecting in their senator someone who will fight for reproductive freedom. Not someone, like Mr. Garvey, frankly, who said that he supported the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade. Someone who would support states' bans on abortions. That's not the answer. If my colleague was listening to the voices of Californians, as he claims, he would hear their voices loud and clear. Californians want a national right to reproductive freedom, and they don't want the government in the business of making that decision for women.
Gabriella,
Mr. Schiff, excuse me, I think he mentioned me there.
Go ahead.
Believes in deconstructing the Constitution.
30 seconds.
He believes that democracy is about packing the court. It's about doing away and downplaying the Second Amendment. Constantly, what people of California have told me as I've walked this state through this last 15 months is they believe in the Constitution. They don't want it desecrated on. They don't believe it should be torn down. They want somebody to stand up for the fundamental beliefs of this country.
Mr. Schiff, 10 seconds.
I don't know what deconstructing the Constitution means, but I do know this.
You worked very hard at doing
this. I'm for reproductive freedom, Mr. Garvey. You are not. And Californians deserve better than that. They're not looking for some MAGA mini-me in a baseball uniform. They want someone who's going to fight for their rights, as I will do.
Warren Armstrong, your next question for Mr. Schiff.
Mark, thank you very much, and good evening, gentlemen. Mr. Schiff, this is for you. 1 year ago this week, Hamas terrorists massacred nearly 1,200 people in Israel. Since then, the health ministry in Gaza says thousands of Palestinians have been killed. Lebanon is under attack, and Iran is firing missiles into Israel. What plan, if any, do you support to bring peace to a region that's been unsettled for nearly 100 years?
Warren, yesterday, as you know, was the anniversary of that terrorist attack by Hamas that took the lives of 1,200 innocent people, including Americans. Israelis were raped and murdered and abducted. Many still remain hostage. Hezbollah, the day after this war began, started lobbing projectiles indiscriminately into Israel. And Iran is using its proxies and now firing directly on Israel. The United States needs to continue to support its ally, Israel, in its right to defend itself. No nation state could go through that kind of attack and not defend itself. What's more, we cannot have a situation where that terrorist group, Hamas, continues to control Gaza or threaten the lives of Israelis, Americans, and others. So we need to support Israel. At the same time, we need to make sure that we're doing all we can to ultimately bring about a two-state solution where Israelis and Palestinians can live in security and peace. To me, that is the only lasting solution that will bring peace to the region. And tragically, Hamas, for a time, has killed that idea in Israel and elsewhere. But I think it's the answer.
Mr. Garvey.
I've said from the beginning that I support Israel yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I will stand by them for all their needs at any time. But I could never tell them they can't protect their sovereignty. I went to Israel. I've been there during this war. I went to the kibbutz that was beginning at 6:30 on October 7th, where the devastation and the true genocide began. I went to the music festival where 350 young men and women were killed and devastated there. I went to a hostage family's home. Guy is still a hostage. We need to get the hostages back. But let's face it, in two administrations, with the Obama and the Biden administration, this man voted for significant packages of billions of dollars to Iran. Why? To pander to Iran? Absolutely. Let's not be nice to Iran. What Iran did was build an arsenal and create 7 proxies that are now threatening the Middle East with one small country of 9 million people who are trying to survive. We need to step up and not pander. There'll never be a two-state solution because one of them will try to decimate the other. And by the way,
your time has expired, Mr. Garvey.
Thank you.
Kristen Z., your next question for Mr. Garvey.
Thank you, Mark. Mr. Garvey, Californians are struggling with our high cost of living. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, San Francisco's housing cost is a staggering 86.5% above the national average. Food, 17% higher. Transportation, 11% higher. What specific policies would you try to advance to alleviate the cost of living burden on working and middle-class families?
Absolutely. I think under Mr. Schiff's watch over these last 25 years, you've seen us come to a situation now where we're much worse off than we were 4 years ago. Let's get back to a free market capitalization, supply side. Let's start to get money flowing in this great state and country of ours. What suppressed the people right from the beginning, day one of the Biden administration, was to shut off energy. When you shut off energy, the ripple effect it has in this country went to the living room table, to the gas station, the ability to save, ability to provide for their children. All of these things need to be attacked and attacked in an expeditious, proper manner. And this man has seen this time and time again. He's never been able to solve the problem because he believes in throwing money at it and not actually coming up with an answer and a solution.
Mr. Schiff.
I think housing is a human right, and it's a terrible tragedy that we have so many of our fellow citizens that are living on the street, and so many more that can't afford a place to live anywhere near where they work. When I was a kid, my father was in the clothing business. He made $18,000 a year. My parents, on the strength of that single income, were able to afford our first home for $18,000 a year. That's not possible now. There's a lot that we have to do about this, and it starts with building a lot more housing and building it fast. I'm supporting a low-income housing tax credit that would incentivize the development of hundreds of thousands of new units in California. We also have to get local communities to approve housing much more quickly. It can take 4 years to build housing in many of our cities. We're never going to solve this problem if it takes 4 years or $1 million a door to build affordable housing. I would like to incentivize local governments to get to yes faster. And for those who are homeless and struggling from mental health or substance abuse problems, we need to get the treatment and wraparound services so they remain housed.
Kristen, you had a follow-up?
Yes, it's for Mr. Garvey. You mentioned wanting to get back to more of a free market. So in that regard, I wonder if you would support higher tariffs on imported goods, for example, from China, as presidential candidate Donald Trump is advocating?
I believe it should be a measured tariff situation, where if tariffs on a country should be administered if it is a company that threatens the success of an American company right there. I think tariffs aren't the answer. I think allowing American companies and corporations to really survive and to prosper really means less taxation on them so that we can get all these products and services in this country without the need for importing from other countries.
Mr. Schiff, want to address the tariff issue?
I don't support Donald Trump's across-the-board tariffs. Economists say this will lead to inflation. What's more, it'll be essentially a 10% tax on every consumer in California and around the country. That is not the answer. I do support targeted tariffs when China is dumping steel or dumping other products or dumping technology to try to drive American businesses out of business. Then you're darn right, we slap tariffs on China. But we should do it strategically and not indiscriminately across the board, which would simply result in higher taxes for Americans.
Gabriella, your question for Mr. Schiff.
Up until June, the San Diego sector was the area with the most undocumented migrant crossings in the country, into the country. Given the complexity of the situation for millions of families on both sides of the border, if it were up to you, what would be the first immediate action you would take to address the situation, even before Congress acts on anything?
We need to get control of the border. We need a strong border policy, which is going to require us, first and foremost, to have more personnel along the border. We need better technologies along the border to interdict both people and narcotics when narcotics are being smuggled across the border. But we also need a comprehensive immigration policy that treats those that are trying to immigrate or migrate as human beings, that's consistent with our values. We need a solution that provides relief for our dreamers and for the farm workers who put food on our table. It ought to be comprehensive if it's going to be effective. I met a gentleman when I was doing a roundtable in Calexico, walks across the port of entry every day, works on a farm in the United States, 100-degree heat, walks back through the port of entry to his family in Mexico. One of the hardest working people I've ever met. someone like that should have a pathway to citizenship. Someone like that should be treated with respect and dignity. We can have both a strong border, but also treat people as human beings. That's the kind of policy I support.
Mr. Garvey.
Over the last 4 years, this man has voted for open border. That means that 15 million people, plus getaways, have come into this country. And we know when that happens. What we have to do is secure the border. We have to finish off the wall. We have to reinstate, remain in Mexico. We have to reinforce our Border Patrol. We have to get back to building facilities at the border that will detain these illegal immigrants, then a judicial system that will try them. But let's face it, the times that I've been at the border, when I've gone up and down, it's an existential crisis in the country that's been created by Joe Biden. And with this man right here, maybe it's all about votes in the future. But I do believe, as somebody with common sense and compassion and consensus building, we've got to get back to letting those people that have started it the right way at countries and gone to their embassies and are waiting tens of thousands to come to this country to only see America letting in illegal immigrants as causing death and destruction in this country.
Thank you.
Mark, since my name was invoked, I'd like to respond.
Okay, you can
First of all, Mr. Garvey,
15 seconds.
I've never voted for open borders, but I'll tell you what, you voted for Donald Trump now 3 times. You say you're going to vote for him again. This is somebody who wants mass deportations, someone who says they will enact mass deportations without the approval of Congress. So you're voting for mass deportations when you say you're for Donald Trump. And I'll tell you, that is not where Californians are. That is not where the American people are. And that is certainly not where I am.
15 seconds,
One
Mr.
of the
Garvey.
two of us is honest and straightforward.
I would agree with
and
that.
you're looking at him right here. What's happened is that you've hammered away at me at Donald Trump, and you don't know that, don't really believe I'm a Donald Trump MAGA. But what is true is that
I know your policies
have you voted
read
for
like
George
Project, I know
Gascon?
your policies,
Have you voted for George Gascon?
I know
DA
your policies
of,
read
Los
like
Angeles,
Project 2025.
who has been
Mr.
easy
Garvey.
on crime?
I know what I've read on your
We're moving a
website.
little
How about
further.
Proposition 36?
The last
Are you
question was
voting
about
for Proposition
immigration.
36?
We are done. We're moving on now. Thank you, gentlemen. Warren Armstrong, your next question for Mr. Garvey.
Mr. Garvey, California's water shortage and storage are major issues across California, especially in the Central Valley, where 25% of the nation's food supply is grown. How do you specifically plan to address the water crisis, not only for California residents, but for the U.S. agriculture industry and food security?
That's a great question. I was just in Northern California, up the Shasta Basin, this second largest basin in the country, provides arguably the greatest agricultural area in the world with its water. The most important thing is we need support from our representatives. I don't think Mr. Schiff has done anything near what he needs to do, and this goes back to 24 years of failed policies. I think that what I saw last week were farmers, existential farmers who are the true roots of this country, needing water and should get it. You know, water is the platinum. They say oil is the gold. The platinum for California is something that needs to be done. A great example is Kern County Water Bank, where private shares are used to provide water for them. Let's look at all these policies that need to be reinforced by elected officials and not just career politicians who have failed at the state of California.
Mr. Schiff.
Well, first of all, I'm enormously proud of California's agricultural industry. It feeds not only the state, it feeds the country, it feeds the entire world. Many of the farmers have been farmers for generations in California, and I'm proud of what they do. I'm also enormously proud of what the farm workers do, who toil for endless hours in the heat and often very difficult conditions to put food on our table. I want to make sure that that industry remains healthy. At the same time, I want to make sure that what has drawn so many people, including my own family, to California, our beautiful environment is preserved. And in order to strike that compromise, we're going to have to make use of this precious resource in a more efficient way, which means we're going to have to capture runoff in those wet years, when millions and millions of gallons go out into the ocean and are wasted. It means that we're going to need to transport water from where it can be gathered to where it can be stored. It means we're going to have to deploy new technologies that can bring scarce water directly to the plant and be more efficient in how we irrigate. It means we're going to have to do a better job conserving. It means we're going to have to recycle more water and be more efficient in recycling as well. We're going to need to employ all of these things, and more than that, we're going to have to attack climate change, or we'll never get ahead of this.
Warren, you have a follow-up.
Yes, I have a follow-up, please, Mr. Schiff. Would you support the easing of environmental regulations in order to get those farmers more water and to also the urban areas?
I would not support eviscerating our environmental regulations, no. But what I would do, and what you brought up Senator Feinstein in your first question, what I would do is what Senator Feinstein did, which is sit down with the stakeholders, as I've been doing over the last year, make sure that I understand the issues and the trade-offs, and look for those opportunities where we can have a win both for our farms, our cities, and our environment. It is not, I think, beyond the capability of Californians to want to have it all and to do it all. That is, to make sure that we have a beautiful environment, that we preserve our wildlife, but that we also continue to be the breadbasket of the entire world.
Mr. Garvey, 30 seconds. Should the regulations, environmental regulations, be eased?
Well, somebody who's built teams all my life and won knows how to work together and is a consensus builder. I think we need the environmentalists to work with the farmers. This vivid area needs to be preserved. You know, Mr. Schiff has these great ideas, and if you look at his website, he's got 13 or 15 of them. The problem is he really doesn't have an answer of how to pay for that, and that's why all these issues lead up to $3 trillion in expense. But never does he have an answer on how to pay for these situations. Water, again, the platinum issue in California, and I'll fight for that every day.
Kristen, your question for Mr. Garvey. I'm sorry, for Mr. Schiff, excuse me.
Congressman Schiff, there is both excitement and trepidation over the rapid development of AI. One fear, though, is that AI may spread bias and misinformation. Another is its potential impact on the labor market. The White House Council of Economic Advisors has identified about 10% of the workforce as AI vulnerable. How would you address these concerns in the Senate without hurting innovation in California, especially in Silicon Valley?
Well, I probably, as the chair of the Intel Committee, had one of Congress's first hearings on AI, and in particular, AI's impacts on our national security. At that time, I was concerned about foreign or even domestic misuse of AI during campaigns to mislead voters, a concern that has only become greater. But my principal concern about AI is the one that you mentioned. That is, what is the effect on the American worker? What we've seen over the last 50 years, sadly, is life has gotten hard for working families. It's not that they're not working. Unemployment is very low, but because of globalism, because of automation, people are working harder than ever and still struggling to get by. AI threatens to accelerate that. Now, I want to keep this technology and these jobs in California because it's a force multiplier for our economy, but I want to make sure that it's well regulated so we protect workers and we protect the workplace. I want to make sure that workers can unionize and get good contracts and have negotiating power with their employers so that they can fight for good wages, health care, and good benefits. That's the approach I think we need to take to make sure the economy is working for everyone.
Mr. Garvey, AI.
Well, I think it is the future. I think that in many ways, in being on boards of institutions and medical institutions, that it is going to have tremendous effect and a positive effect. My only concern is how is it going to affect individuals? Can it be mind-altering? Can it affect their personal lives? I think in the future there'll be a balance between AI and labor and commerce. And it gets back to, and as Mr. Schiff mentioned, about the economy and about getting the economy back. Well, I like to call that Schifflation when he talks about the economy and trying to get that to coincide and come in line with new innovations like AI.
Gabriella, your question for Mr. Garvey.
We mentioned affordable housing before, but let's start with this. We face here in California a housing crisis with low inventory and high prices across the board. Critics often cite building regulations and zoning laws as barriers to increasing inventory. Others oppose rent control and more government intervention. So do you believe we should let the housing market balance itself, or do we really need more regulation? Mr. Garvey first.
Well,
Mr. Garvey,
Mr. Garvey,
right?
yes.
That's me. Well, I think this gets back to more of a local issue, releasing land leases on a local basis, working with builders, giving them incentives to build housing. Mr. Schiff in his website talks about housing, affordable housing is just build more housing, but it's much more than that. But if we do start to mention a federal issue, I think this is where government becomes over-involved and a situation can be worked out on that local level.
Mr. Schiff?
I'm not sure I followed that answer, but here's what I would say. I met with a young woman in the north of the state. She told me that she graduated from college about 10 years earlier. She was still paying down her student loans. Her rent kept going up and up and up, and rents are going up in rural areas as fast as they're going up anywhere else in the state. Between the two, she had barely enough to get by, and she was terrified. I think she speaks for millions of people. We need to build a lot more housing in California, and you know, my opponent may say, well, the government doesn't have much of a role in that, but we do. We can incentivize the development of housing. We can help break this logjam, and we're going to have to. The problem will not solve itself. We should also be making a greater federal direct investment in housing. And we also should incentivize local government agencies to make decisions quicker on housing. We're going to have to do all of this and more and treat this as the urgency that it is. It is my top priority to bring down the cost of housing in California.
Real quick, how about renters? What are you going to do to help renters? Let's start with Mr. Garvey.
Proposition 3, is that, are we
No,
addressing
just
that?
what your policies would be to help people who rent.
Well,
30 seconds.
you know, it's interesting that young men and women, young families trying to buy maybe the single greatest asset they'll ever have can't do that because of inflation, because of the economy. And I think once we get that economy roaring again, we get supply side influence, free market capitalization, put money in their pockets, they'll be able to buy homes and be able to rent at an affordable price. And I think that's where it starts from.
Okay, 30 seconds, Mr. Schiff, on rent, and then, Gabrielle, you had a follow-up. Go ahead.
Look, if you're lucky enough to buy a home, you get to write off a lot of your mortgage as a result. If you're a renter, you get no help. I don't think that's right. I would like to see a renter's tax credit so that renters also get some help with their rent. I'd also like to see us expand Section 8 vouchers. We've made a lot of progress in moving homeless veterans into shelter because we put such a focus and priority on veterans, as we should. But everyone deserves a place to live, and I think dramatically expanding Section 8 vouchers, making them available for people who need them, making sure that landlords can't turn down people who want to use a voucher.
All right.
This is part of the answer.
Thank you. Gabrielle, really quickly?
Yeah, so it's simply put, more regulation? Do we need more housing regulation in the state of California, yes or no?
15
No,
seconds each, Max.
we need
no?
less regulation. I think this is the problem. I think the more you regulate, the more you control. This man and his party wants to control this country, and they want to do this. This is almost a tyranny in which a government suppresses the people
Mr.
by
Schiff.
controlling them.
More
15
regulation,
seconds.
the answer is no, far from it. What we need are tax incentives to build housing. What we need are local governments that treat this as the urgency that it is, that will make quick approvals or quick refusals. It's not going to be appropriate to build everything everywhere. But a quick answer is much better than a long, lingering maybe or a no.
Thank you.
Local government needs to act fast.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break from this U.S. Senate Candidate Forum. We'll be right back with another half hour of questioning.
Blindside. It was a story tailor-made for Hollywood. A wealthy white family taking in a black teenager.
Michael Orr filing a lawsuit saying it was far from the truth.
Tui contesting his suit.
When you watch that film back, it's a little cringy, and in some cases wasn't true at all.
Inside the real story of how Super Bowl champion Michael Orr became involved with the multimillionaire Tui family. Who will come out on top?
Behind the Blind Side, now streaming on Hulu.
Trick or treat!
When I flick this switch, there'll be a horrible noise and a terrible odor.
Will it hurt?
Pain like you've never known. Oh!
Seems risky.
I am much satisfied.
What? You scared? This is happiness.
We love Halloween. Got me.
He's a bit silly.
Turning the machine off. Do you feel good?
Welcome back to the U.S. Senate Candidate Forum, hosted by ABC7 and the League of Women Voters of California. We'll continue our questions now. I'm going to ask for Mr. Schiff and then Mr. Garvey. Who do you support for president and why? Mr. Schiff, you begin.
I support Vice President Kamala Harris. I think she has a strong plan to make the economy work for everyone. I think she is a good and decent human being. I think she will stand up to bullies around the world like Vladimir Putin. She has earned my vote. On the other hand, Donald Trump, I think, was a disastrous president. I think he has threatened our democracy. He says he wants to be a dictator on day one. He wants to use the Justice Department to go after his political enemies. He demonizes groups of people. Right now, it's the Haitians, and who will it be tomorrow? Americans want someone who is good and decent and ethical, who knows right from wrong, who's capable of telling the truth as the President of the United States. And the choice, to me, is very clear, and it's Kamala Harris.
Mr. Garvey.
They've been trying to paint me for a year now into one corner or the other. And I've said, I'm running a Steve Garvey campaign. I make my decisions based on what I think is best for the people. I did vote for Donald Trump 3 times. I believe he's the best man for the job. We were much safer. We had a better economy. We had more to look forward to. People could dream. But I can't imagine, Mr. Schiff, how you could get up every morning and have one mission, and that's to go after Donald Trump. You've been made a proxy by the higher-ups in your party, whether it's going after him concerning impeachment, all these things. And if you think about it for a minute, how can you think about one man every day and focus on that when you've got millions of people in California to take care of?
Mr.
I think it's unconscionable. And like I said before, he lied to 300 million people when he was going through that whole process of trying to get Donald Trump impeached.
Mr. Schiff, 30 seconds.
Mr. Garvey likes that particular attack because that's what Trump likes to say. It's his way of telling MAGA viewers out there, hey, I'm one of you. That's not what Californians are looking for, Mr. Garvey. Mr. Garvey, I stood up to a corrupt president, and yes, I investigated him, I impeached him, I led the trial in the Senate, and when he incited a violent attack on the Capitol, and I was there that day, Mr. Garvey, I was there on January 6th as those insurrectionists were breaking down the doors and windows. The fact that you think that's perfectly okay, that you still want to support the guy who incited that violent attack, that tells me that you would never take your oath of office seriously,
your time is
as I do.
I'll give you 30 seconds, Mr. Garvey, and then we're going to move on. 30 seconds, sir.
I've left him speechless.
No, because I'm trying to think about all the things that you lost. You know, when you step up and you talk like you talk right now, it tells those hardworking people in California that you don't care about them. You care about something else. And I think that you were banned from the Intelligence Committee. You were censored, only one of 3 congressmen to be censored in the history of the Congress. And if you're elected to the U.S. Senate, it'll be the most toxic Senate in the history of the Senate.
You know what it tells them, Mr. Garvey? It tells them that I will stand up and defend our democracy and that you won't.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to move on from support for different candidates. Now we're going to talk about fentanyl. Warren, you have a question for Mr. Garvey.
122,000 deaths across the country last year were attributed to fentanyl. As of yesterday, there have been 62 deaths just in Fresno County. Legislation recently passed requires the president to sanction cartel members who are engaged in fentanyl trafficking and those who funnel precursor chemicals from China. But fentanyl is already here on our streets and it's killing people. How do you plan to address the fentanyl crisis if you're elected?
Well, first of all, the majority of the fentanyl comes from China. It's precursored there. It's brought to Mexico. It's put together in Mexico, and then it's driven across the border. where it's driven the cartels for distribution that are killing Americans. Let's get back to securing the border, number one. Let's deal with Mexico honestly and straightforward, and let's deal with China on this. Let's stop being nice with China and nice with Mexico. Americans are being killed because the borders are open, let's face it. We've got to get back to securing the border. Fentanyl, single worst drug ever to come across the borders from anywhere, that are killing our people.
Mr. Schiff.
Prior to my service in the legislature, I was a prosecutor here in Los Angeles for 6 years. I prosecuted people smuggling drugs into this country from Mexico. I've experienced being on the front lines of the fight against those drug smugglers who are ruining countless American lives. Fentanyl has been a terrible curse. My wife, Eve, and I have 2 kids. When they're in college, we worried like every other parent that something might happen to one of our kids. It's terrifying, and for all too many, something did happen tragically. We need to strengthen our interdiction efforts at the border, that's true, but let's be honest about what's happening at the border. Most fentanyl that's smuggled into this country comes through ports of entry, carried by Americans. And we need to go after them, and we need to go after the international cartels that are trafficking in this death. And yes, we need to go after China or anyone who is manufacturing these precursors so that we can protect American lives.
All right, Kristen Z., your question for Mr. Schiff.
Congressman Schiff, on Forbes' 2024 World Billionaires list, California has 86 billionaires, the most of any state. While the average income of the top 1% has risen significantly, middle-income Californians have seen their earnings and their buying power decline. What's your view on the tax burden for different income groups, and how would you address this growing wealth gap in our state?
Some years ago, I had the opportunity to meet Warren Buffett, one of not California's billionaires, but one of the wealthiest people in the world. We discussed how the tax rate for his secretary was half of his own effective tax rate. He didn't think that was right, and he is correct about that. That's wrong. It's immoral, and it's terrible economics. If you look at it, a handful of the richest families in America own almost half of the nation's wealth. And the reason it has gotten this bad is we have a tax code that is terribly unfair to working people and middle-income families. I would change that. That Trump tax cut that Mr. Garvey supports, that just made the rich richer and it made corporations wealthier, but it did nothing for most families. In fact, Californians, middle-class Californians, got a tax increase when the SALT deduction, the state and local tax deduction, was capped in a punitive act by the former president, affecting blue states like California. I would raise that cap. I would support child tax credits that lift kids out of poverty, and I would make the very wealthy and corporations pay their fair share.
Mr. Garvey, taxation?
Taxation. 4 years ago, taxation was the sweet spot for this country. Vibrant economy, men and women going to work every day and believing that they could fulfill their dreams. And it's not that way now. Because an administration and because this man hasn't done anything over the last 24 years on any of these things that have given us any consistency in the line, what this state has become is a welfare and a wealthy state. But let's let those people who, and getting back to what everybody talks about now are small businesses, let's get back to taxation that allows small businesses to be vivid again and contribute. I think I'm good with the Trump tax. I think it worked. We're worse off than we were 4 years ago. And let's get back to people who are successful, be able to make that much money, but they will pay their fair tax. Under my time in the U.S. Senate, 6 years, I'll make sure that happens.
Gabriela, your question for Mr. Garvey.
Latino voters. According to the National Association of Latino Elected Officials, NALEO, the Educational Fund says 29% of registered voters in California are Latino. That's nearly 1 in 3. So why should Latinos vote for either of you? What part of your political platform do you think resonates the most with our Latino community?
Mr. Garvey.
Well, I came here over 55 years ago, put on a Dodger uniform, and I think most people know, played 20 years. And over that time, the emergence of Fernando Valenzuela and the Latino players increased attendance at Dodger Stadium by 40%. And in the last debate we had, the question was, Latino voters don't believe you really care about them. And I think Mr. Schiff said, well, we haven't. And I looked in the camera like I will now and say, when I get back to the U.S. Senate, the Latino community will be my priority, and I will fight for them. And if we get that supply-side economics in line and get this vibrant economy, the money will go into their pockets, and then know who really cares about them.
Mr. Schiff.
Gabrielle, in my opportunities to meet with Latino business leaders around the state, what they've told me is that the struggles they face are the same in many respects as every other community. When housing prices go up, they're disproportionately impacted in the struggle to find housing. When the cost of food and gas and groceries go up and medicine, they're often left wanting. But more than that, there are strong regional needs that I'm also trying to meet. Latinos are most disproportionately impacted by the Tijuana River ecological disaster that's affecting their health. Similarly, in the Salton Sea area, Latino communities deeply adversely impacted by that environmental justice. In the Central Valley, hospitals like the Madera Hospital are shutting down because we're not adequately funding rural health care. Latinos are losing access to health care, life-saving health care. In the north of the state, lack of broadband access means a lot of Latino families get left behind when it comes to education. I'm going to fight for the Latino community. I'm very proud to have the endorsement of La Opinion in this race. This is going to be a top priority for me.
Warren, your question for Mr. Schiff.
Let's talk healthcare. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention indicates that more than 8% of Americans, 27 million people, lacked health insurance at the beginning of 2024. That number is expected to increase as protections linked to the pandemic end. What is your plan to help those without health insurance, and how will you protect those with pre-existing conditions? Mr. Schiff.
My wife and I had the experience that all too many families have of our daughter coming into a room in the middle of the night bleeding, and we had to rush her to a hospital. She was fine. She got treatment. She was fine. Too many families, though, in California and around the country don't have access to that kind of good, immediate, quality health care. I think we should make Medicare available for all who want to participate in it. Folks who don't want to participate shouldn't have to, but those who want to should have that opportunity. What's more, we should continue to negotiate down the price of medicine through Medicare negotiations. I'm going to fight to strengthen Medicare and Social Security. Mr. Garvey says we should, quote, cut these entitlements. That means cutting Medicare for seniors, cutting Social Security for seniors, these incredibly important health care and anti-poverty programs. That's not where Californians are. That's not where I am. My father passed away at 96 this year. He relied on Medicare. He relied on Social Security. He relied on VA health care. I want to make sure that's strong for future generations.
Mr. Garvey.
Let's make sure that we have a vivid and strong Medi-Cal and Medicaid and an expanded Medicare. I think that's where all this starts. Let's not do away with competition between healthcare companies. I'm on several boards that deal with healthcare. Again, we got to get back in to this competitive nature of these United States. Regulations have constrained people competing against each other, and we become stagnant. Let's get back to free market capitalization, where these insurance companies, or I'm sorry, healthcare companies can compete for lower prices so it'll benefit all the people.
Can healthcare companies not compete now?
They've been restrained by regulations, and I think that's one of the problems with where we are in America right now is we need to deregulate. Once this administration took over the first day, you saw a significant amount of regulation at all the key areas that affect our lives.
A quick question for both of you. There's some...
respond to the last one, because I was puzzled to hear Mr. Garvey say he was supporting expanding Medicare. Because earlier in the campaign, Mr. Garvey, you said you wanted to, quote, cut these entitlements. What entitlements were you saying we should cut, if not Medicare and Social Security?
Where are you getting your information?
From you, Mr. Garvey.
No, not from me. You know, when this campaign started, that first day I announced, you came out with a snarky remark that, oh, he was born on third base, meaning that I came from a wealthy family. Well, let me tell you, let me finish. This is going to be about how you disparage my mother, a hardworking woman who got up every day and took 2 buses to go to work, came home and took care of her son and her husband, who she helped get out the door, being a Greyhound bus driver and an invalid mother. So this is what you do.
I
You
have
lie
nothing but the kind of things to say about your mother.
Let's just face it. This is who you are, and this is what you do.
We're talking about your wanting to cut entitlements.
All right. I think we're getting a little far afield here. Let's continue. I have a question for both of you. Both presidential candidates have, at one time or another, come out in favor of abolishing the filibuster. The filibuster has been used in the past to stymie civil rights legislation, voting rights legislation. It's been used to stall or stop appointments to either the cabinet or the federal courts. I want to know both of your position on whether or not you would vote to abolish the filibuster, and I will begin with Mr. Garvey.
Filibuster is a vibrant way for the minority voice to have an opinion. And in this country now, this administration and the progressives are trying to deconstruct the Constitution. They're trying to pack the Supreme Court. They're trying to do away with the filibuster, do away with the Electoral College. All these things are part of this vibrant, single greatest document in the world, and that's the Constitution. On his watch, all he's talked about is doing away with all of these things, packing the court, especially packing the court, right? To take away the real judicial voice of America. And I think that this is unconscionable at a time when we are around the world, never been threatened more, never been in more danger, that you should constantly talk about the Constitution, and now you can deconstruct it.
Mr. Schiff, for or against abolishing the filibuster?
I'm for abolishing the filibuster because, Mark, if we're ever going to restore voting rights, we're going to have to abolish the filibuster. If we're going to want to take meaningful action on gun safety legislation with the universal background checks, we're going to have to abolish the filibuster. If we want comprehensive immigration reform, we're going to have to abolish the filibuster. If we want to restore reproductive freedom to millions of women in California, we're going to have to abolish the filibuster. And as to packing the court, Mr. Garvey, in case you weren't paying attention, it's already been packed. It was packed with reactionary justices who took away the reproductive freedom for millions of people. That court ought to be term limited. There should be enforceable sanctions, ethics sanctions, an enforceable ethics code for that court, like any other federal employee. And yes, that court should be rebalanced, because I don't want my kids growing up under this kind of a reactionary and partisan Supreme Court.
To the people listening, both in this state and around the country, what he's talking about is eliminating free speech. This administration is constantly talking about taking away the free speech of the people, doing away with the Second Amendment, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is under attack by Mr. Schiff and his party. That's why you need a voice like mine in the U.S. Senate starting next January.
Mr. Schiff, I'll give you 30 seconds and then we'll move on.
I appreciate that. Look, I don't know where he's getting half this stuff. He wants to abolish the First Amendment. He wants to stop people's right of First Amendment speech. That's gibberish. Here's what I do want. I want a Supreme Court that we can once again respect, that is enlarging our rights, not doing away with them. I don't want voter restrictions put in place so that eligible voters can't vote. Another generation of Jim Crow laws. I don't want that. I want meaningful gun safety legislation. I want strong action against climate change. Sure. This is, I believe, what Californians also want.
All right. Thank you for your time. Kristen, your question for Mr. Schiff.
Thank you, Mark. Congressman Schiff, in many national conversations, San Francisco is portrayed as crime-ridden and unsafe. But FBI crime data shows it's not actually among the top 100 most violent cities in the U.S. Similarly, California is sometimes characterized as a failing state, despite being the world's 5th largest economy and a center for innovation and diversity. So as a candidate seeking to represent California and its people, all its people, what is your view of California? And based on that view, how would you build a better California?
Well, I realize that Californians are struggling. I understand that many of you are working harder than ever, and having a difficult time getting by. And in the big cities, San Francisco is not alone. I think all big cities in California and many around the country are facing the same post-pandemic struggles to come back. I want to work with community leaders and stakeholders in every part of this Golden State. There's going to be a headline one day, San Francisco is back. There'll be another, Oakland is back. All of our cities are back. And it means that we're going to have to encourage and incentivize people to come back to these big, beautiful cities. California is this incredible hub of innovation. I want to keep the entrepreneurial economy here in California. It's given us all tremendous economic dividends. We want to keep that strong. Yes, it needs to be regulated to protect our society, to protect our workplace. But I want these jobs in California. I don't want them exported overseas. And again, I want to follow Dianne Feinstein's model. She sat down with people. She got to yes. You got to be able to work with people on both sides of the aisle and deliver. That's what I've done, and that's what I'll do.
Thank you, Mr. Schiff. Mr. Garvey.
Mr. Schiff, you're no Dianne Feinstein. I remember when this state was the heartbeat of America, and now it's just a murmur. It's because of the suppression of elected officials, career officials like you, who now have forced good people who have come to this state, came here to dream, knowing that every day, 85% of Californians wake up each morning and realize they're only going to break even or going to lose money. And it's shriftflation, it's suppression of energy and the voice of the people. And I think that this country is only going to start to grow when we start to build consensus, getting back to what I believe in, and that's common sense, compassion, consensus, and not voting 98% down party lines, being able to reach across the aisle and stick out your hand. And I'll do this as the next elected U.S. Senator. I'll go to all 99 of the senators and stick out my hand and say, I want to work with you for the best interest of your state and my state and this country. And I think a lot of them will want
I'm going to give you each
me.
15 more seconds. Mr. Schiff.
I'd like to respond to what he said. And Mr. Garvey, I knew Dianne Feinstein. Dianne Feinstein was a friend of mine, and you're right. I would never pretend to be the equal of Dianne Feinstein. She was a giant. She was a giant. But I'll tell you something about Dianne Feinstein, about my own record. Like Dianne Feinstein, I've worked hard across the aisle to get mass transit built, to pass California's Patient Bill of Rights, which I wrote. I worked to get the early earthquake warning system set up.
I
brought millions back to California for housing.
We've got to get to closing statements.
If I could just say, well, Mr. Garvey was signing baseballs for the last 37 years. I was seeing presidents of both parties and governors of both parties sign my bills into law.
And for 24 years, you've only been known for one thing, and that's impeaching somebody else. That's unconscionable.
All right. Now, we're going to get to our closing statements. I'm going to give each candidate 1 minute to present their closing statements on why they should be elected by Californians to the United States Senate. Mr. Garvey, you are first.
Well, it's been 55 years since you and I first met, coming to Dodger Stadium September 1st of 1969, putting on a Dodger uniform, playing for 20 years in San Diego and LA, growing businesses, family, being involved in charities and understanding what California is all about. You know, I listened to a song, Someone Like You by Van Morrison, and it reminded me of the day I decided to run. That someone like you is the people of California who've been suppressed and regulated, who need a new, fresh, young voice. Somebody will get up every day and swing for the fences for you, and that you know in my heart and in my prayers, I will be a 6-year senator that'll make a difference in your life and your family, your future, and your children. God bless you. And this has been the greatest journey of my life. I need your vote. Go to stevegarvey.com.
Mr. Schiff, 1 minute.
Thank you again for hosting the debate tonight. I've been very proud to represent California in the U.S. Congress. I'm proud of my record of delivering for the people of California. I'm proud of building light rail. I'm proud of passing California's Patient Bill of Rights. I'm proud of bringing back millions to this state to build housing, to get things done again in California. I'm proud to have authored legislation that helps us attack wildfires and expand health care to millions of people. Californians deserve a senator who has a track record of delivering, of getting things done for the people of this state. But California also has a right to expect that their senator will stand up for our Constitution, for our democracy, and yes, we'll take on even a corrupt president, which was my obligation, my constitutional obligation, and I would do so again if the need should arise. But I've been enormously proud to represent many of you in the House of Representatives. I'd be very proud to represent every part of this big, beautiful state in the U.S. Senate, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Schiff and Mr. Garvey. Thank both of you for this great forum. We'd like to thank our co-sponsor, the League of Women Voters of California, and our media partner, Univision LA. Additional thanks to our sister stations, KGO in San Francisco and KFSN in Fresno. A reminder, Election Day, November 5th, just 4 weeks from today. Early in-person voting starts at the end of the month. Vote by mail ballots must be postmarked by Election Day. We thank you for joining us. Have a good evening. Get out there and vote. Good night.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We are coming to you live after the debate between California candidates for Senate Adam Schiff and Steve Garvey as the fight for control of Congress heats up. The spirited one-hour debate covered a wide range of issues, including the economy, abortion, immigration, and artificial intelligence. Garvey at one point calling inflation Schifflation. Schiff blasted Garvey, calling him a MAGA mini-me in a baseball uniform. Schiff is a sitting Democratic congressman who has served in Congress since 2001 and led the first impeachment of former President Trump. Garvey is a former baseball player for the Los Angeles Dodgers and San Diego Padres. He has never held political office. The Golden State is a deep blue state and worth 55 electoral votes, the most of any state in the country. And this race is one of 34 Senate seats up for election. 23 are held by Democrats or independents. Republicans can retake control with a net gain of 2 seats or by winning the 2024 presidential election. An upset here could have major implications on everything from the Supreme Court and guns to reproductive access and immigration. But polls show Schiff with a major lead over Garvey. And joining us right now from our LA bureau is Zareen Shah to break down the differences each candidate presented on some of tonight's major issues. Let's start with abortion and Adam Schiff, who said this.
I don't know what deconstructing the Constitution means, but I do know this.
You worked very hard at doing this.
I'm for reproductive freedom, Mr. Garvey. You are not. And Californians deserve better than that. They're not looking for some MAGA mini-me in a baseball uniform. They want someone who's going to fight for their rights, as I will do.
MAGA mini-me right there. Zareen, before Representative Schiff said that, Mr. Garvey said he pledged to show support for the voice of Californians. How did he manage to thread that needle?
Very carefully, but Schiff, of course, called him out. So Garvey said that he was personally against abortion. He says that he was a Catholic. He says he believes that life starts at conception. But then he says he believes in the voices of Californians, that he supports the voices of Californians. He points out the facts that voters in the state have built into their Constitution a protection for abortion. And Schiff didn't buy that. He basically said he was trying to have it both ways. And he tried in that moment, as well as many other moments, to try and connect Garvey with Trump.
And Zareen, Garvey really resisted the notion of being a blind MAGA supporter. He admitted voting for Trump 3 times, but then he said this.
But I can't imagine, Mr. Schiff, how you could get up every morning and have one mission, and that's to go after Donald Trump. You've been made a proxy by the higher-ups in your party, whether it's going after him concerning impeachment, all these things.
And what did Schiff have to say? And how does talking about Trump align with his campaign this election?
You know, I almost wonder if Garvey took the bait there. I mean, look, a lot of Californians do not align themselves with Donald Trump. And for Garvey to point that out in this moment could have been a gift potentially for Schiff. And Schiff says, yes, he investigated him. He said he helped impeach him. He says he was there on January 6th. And this aligns with something bigger. Look, Schiff has been traveling around the country in this moment on a lot of these national issues, talking about Trump, going to places like Ohio, going to Pennsylvania. He's going to Nevada and Arizona in just a couple of weeks. And so it feels like he's certainly running on Donald Trump on these national issues in this moment because he is, yes, ahead in the polls. And this moment did feel like something that Schiff perhaps wanted, Linsey.
And the candidates had a heated conversation about immigration. They're both against the border bill Vice President Harris backed. Schiff tried to tie Garvey to Trump, again saying this.
But I'll tell you what, you voted for Donald Trump now 3 times. You say you're going to vote for him again. This is somebody who wants mass deportations. Someone who says they will enact mass deportations without the approval of Congress. So you're voting for mass deportations when you say you're for Donald Trump. And I'll tell you, that is not where Californians are. That is not where the American people are. And that is certainly not where I am.
So, Zorine, where do both stand on the issue of immigration and border policy, especially Schiff?
And Linsey, you actually brought up a very good point that both of them are against Kamala Harris's support for that immigration bill, for that border bill. The reason, they have different reasons. So Garvey's team says that, look, there was way too many other issues packed into that bill. Schiff's team essentially says that, look, they didn't feel like Alex Padilla was involved in the negotiations of that bill, so he didn't support it for that reason. But Schiff says they need to get control of the border. They also need comprehensive immigration policies, that they need relief for dreamers and farm workers, and better check to stop people and drugs from coming across the border. Garvey, for his part, he talked about Border Patrol, building more facilities at the border that will detain immigrants. But, you know, for just an hour debate, for a local debate with 2 people who are aspiring to be the next senator of California, a lot of contentious issues, Linsey.
Certainly, we did observe that. Zorine, our thanks to you. I want to bring in our good friend, 538's Galen Druk, to take a look at the polling. Glad to have you in studio with us. All right, so let's talk about how these 2 are polling right now in California.
Yeah, so Schiff is leading by about 20 percentage points over Garvey. It's about 53% to 34% in the latest University of Southern California poll. And we see a similar dynamic in the presidential race in California, which is that Harris leads Trump by about 20 percentage points. Of course, there are fewer undecided voters in that presidential race, so Harris's numbers are a little higher, and so are Trump's when you look at the head-to-head for the presidential race. But in general, the Democrats in California this cycle are underperforming where Biden was in 2020. Biden won California by nearly 30 percentage points in the last presidential election. So it looks like we're seeing some shift towards the right in deep blue California, something actually we have seen in some other very blue states like New York, for example.
And Schiff does not want the shift, for sure.
He for sure does not. He was trying to make his case, and even making his case on some more conservative issues. So when they asked about immigration, the first thing he talked about was securing the border. 4 years ago, I don't think that would have been the case. You would have heard a Democrat first and foremost talking about how Trump's wall doesn't necessarily need to be built or how it's bigoted, or talking about children in cages. You actually heard Schiff say first and foremost that the border needs to be secured.
What are some of the big motivating factors for voters in California?
So for voters in California, like voters everywhere, the economy is the #1 most important issue, and it goes on down from there. But I think it's important to say, because this is a local race, that there are California-specific issues that rank very highly. So one of them, for example, is homelessness. In this recent University of Southern California poll, they asked about the popularity of Governor Gavin Newsom's recent initiative to clear homeless encampments. That got over 70% support amongst Californians. You know, there's another way of looking at politics in California, which is not necessarily Democrat, Republican, because it is a pretty blue state, but pro-building more housing and not necessarily pro-building more housing. So call it YIMBY or NIMBY. Yes in my backyard, not in my backyard. And you see a really stark split amongst Californians, whether they're in favor of increasing rent controls or not, or whether they're in favor of increasing taxes to help build more affordable housing or not. So whereas it's a clearly Democratic state, and I think, you know, the majority of Californians will be voting for Schiff, when it comes to some of these specifics on housing, Californians are very closely divided.
And we heard a lot of that with regard to just how expensive it is to buy a house in particular in California compared to the rest of the country. How difficult is it for a Republican to win statewide office in California?
Well, I think I can say that it won't be happening this year in 2024 unless there is a polling miss that is outside the bounds of anything we have seen in a very long time. But look, it wasn't so long ago that a Republican could win statewide in California. I'm sure folks remember Governor Schwarzenegger of California. And actually, when Kamala Harris ran for Attorney General for the first time in California, she barely won. She won by just about a percentage point. And so we think these days of politics as being stuck in the mud, right? Everyone believes what they believe and not too much shifts around. That's not true if you look at politics over the span of a decade. And so California is very uncompetitive today, but as I mentioned earlier on, it has shifted back towards the right, and it may continue to shift. And so, yeah, while it's very blue today, 10 years down the line, maybe a Republican is competitive in California once again.
Always love to have the context behind the numbers from you, Galen. Thank you so much. And joining us now are Jay O'Brien. And Jay, let's take a step back for a second. This is just one of 34 races in the Senate. How does California factor in overall?
Well, first and foremost, you heard Galen lay out the polling there. That's why Democrats feel very good about their chances in California and holding on to that Senate seat. But they don't feel as good in other places across the map because Democrats have to defend 23 Senate seats this cycle. And they only have a razor-thin control over the Senate as it is, a 51-49 majority. And there are a number of seats that do not look nearly as good for Democrats. We're talking about states like Ohio, Wisconsin, West Virginia, where Joe Manchin was a senator. He was an independent senator that caucused with the Democrats. That's almost certainly going to flip to the Republicans. And then, of course, there's a very tense Senate race happening right now in Montana as well. Democratic Senator Jon Tester trying to hold on to his seat there. Point being, while there are safe Democratic seats that Democrats feel are locked in for them, like California, they very much do have their worries about other states and their work cut out for them there.
And let's talk about that. In those states where Democrats are more vulnerable, how are we seeing those races play out at this hour tonight?
It's interesting. I mentioned Wisconsin, for instance, Tammy Baldwin trying to hold on to her seat there. We've seen some new polling in that state that shows she might be having more troubles here. For instance, Tammy Baldwin, there was a Cook political report out tonight that moved that state from lean Democrat to toss-up states. So a little bit of concern I've heard from Democrats as it relates to that. We've also heard about Montana. Obviously, that's a Republican state. It's a deep red state. It's likely to go heavy for Trump. But Jon Tester in that state is trying to essentially run closer to Donald Trump than he is to the Biden-Harris administration. We've seen Jon Tester put out ads where he has said that he's worked with Donald Trump and tried to essentially say that he worked against Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, we've heard top Democrats say to Democrats essentially, do whatever you have to do to win, but there are different strategies across this constellation of states and a very serious concern from Democrats that they might not be able to hold on to this slim Senate majority.
How much does the top of the ticket impact some of these Senate races?
Well, we've seen, for instance, Democrats like Tester try to run closer to Donald Trump because they view it as being more politically advantageous for them. In a state like Ohio, for instance, a Republican state Trump also expected to carry, we've seen the top of the ticket be viewed as a potential benefit for Democrats in some instances, in that, for instance, Donald Trump might turn off more moderate Republicans, keep them from going to the polls. Obviously, we won't know if that bears out fully until election night. But the other thing we've seen is even in states like California, and we saw it play out in the debate tonight, the candidates who are at the top of the ticket take center stage on the issues. I mean, there was this moment with Adam Schiff where really one of the most politically fraught exchanges between the two was when Adam Schiff was essentially defending his impeachment trial against Donald Trump, in which he served as one of the impeachment managers, his conduct during the Russia investigation and things of that nature. And then we saw Schiff tried to tie essentially Garvey to Donald Trump, paint him as MAGA, as you referenced earlier on in the broadcast. And Adam Schiff, while embracing the policies of the Biden administration and certainly supporting Kamala Harris for president, not really running that close to Kamala Harris, not bringing up her name that frequently tonight.
And getting back to this particular debate in California, was there a moment tonight that stood out to you in particular?
There was this one moment when we go back to that exchange between Garvey and Schiff about Donald Trump, about the Russia investigation. I mean, you know this just as well as I, Lindsey, that Adam Schiff is not a popular figure with Republicans on Capitol Hill. They stripped him of his Choice Committee assignment, rather, on the Intelligence Committee because they didn't like his conduct during the Russia investigation. Now, obviously, Democrats said that was punitive. They pushed back strong against it. But point being is a lot of Republicans wanted to see Garvey land a strong punch on Adam Schiff about that conduct. And when the moderators went back to Garvey for a rebuttal on that exact topic, he kind of took a beat and he gathered his thoughts, and he didn't really land the punch as well as some Republicans would have likely wanted him to.
All right, well, Jay O'Brien, speaking of the moderators, joining us now is one of them. You just saw the candidate forum there, KBC anchor Mark Brown joining us tonight, hot off the presses. Thank you so much.
Got my head a little.
What was that?
It was fun. I couldn't hear you. Sorry. Go ahead.
It was fun. All right, well, this is the last debate between now and the election. Were there any answers or moments tonight that you think will resonate with most voters?
That will resonate? That's a tough one. I think when both candidates talked about their vision of California, how they feel about California, and Adam Schiff talked about how Californians are struggling, and there are things that he wants to do to address that. Steve Garvey talked about how people are leaving California and how he believes that supply side economics and a return to, I think he meant capitalism, but he talked about capitalization was going to help Californians and really turn the state around. But that was probably the one moment. There were some other things, some kind of personal attacks that we tried not to let get out of hand. But I think both tried to move the needle. It's a question of whether they were able to do that or not.
Right, and I think you did a good job on keeping them on track. Earlier, we showed polling that showed Adam Schiff with a wide lead over Steve Garvey. How much do you think that tonight could actually move the needle based on what you saw?
It would be very hard, I think, for Steve Garvey or any Republican to move the needle in what is arguably the bluest of blue states. So he's already got an uphill battle. He is very well known and liked, of course, loved because of his time with the Dodgers, but politically not well known here in California. So he has a big hill to climb. Adam Schiff, of course, has been a national figure involved in the impeachment process of former President Donald Trump, much more well known. And in this blue state where a lot of people supported that impeachment, he's kind of had the advantage going in.
And taking a step back, of course, you know your community there very well in Los Angeles. I'm curious if there's a particular issue you feel like overall the voters that mattered to voters most tonight.
Well, I think, and I'm not sure if anybody really addressed it head on, I think one of the biggest issues for voters here in California, particularly in Southern California, crime, homelessness, and quality of life type issues. Things are expensive. It's an expensive state to live in. It's been an expensive state to live in for a very long time. But people are starting to get the sense that they're not getting their money's worth, if you want to put it that way. That crime, even though crime is down, the perception is that crime is up, even though violent crime is actually trending down in California and in Los Angeles County in particular. So I'm not sure either candidate really got to that as much as they needed to address that particular concern among the voters here, and they were trying to really talk about what they wanted to do in the future.
And Mark, I'm going to let you go here. I know you said it was fun. Anything that surprised you tonight?
They started to go a little personal, and that was surprising. The part at which Steve Garvey accused Adam Schiff of disparaging Garvey's mother, I thought was surprising, and I hadn't heard anything about that before, and it seemed surprising to the people who were there. I tried to, bring them back on track. It was a little like herding cats at certain points in this debate, I got to tell you, but I think both men did their best.
All right, KABC anchor Mark Brown, job well done tonight. We thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Lindsay.
And now I want to turn it over to our Olivia Rubin, our investigative reporter who also covers the Trump campaign. Olivia, as we've already been talking about, of course, Schiff led that impeachment against Donald Trump. If we are to fast forward and just hypothetically say that both men end up in office, Adam Schiff and Donald Trump, what might that look like?
Well, look, Adam Schiff, clearly someone who has shown he's not afraid to take on Donald Trump, both in investigating him and, as he said, I impeached him, could have the opportunity, Lindsay, to be a real thorn in the side of Donald Trump, someone who has been investigated for years and someone who is not kind to those who have investigated him. Look, they have both traded barbs over each other. Donald Trump has plenty of nicknames for Adam Schiff. He's called for him to be arrested, saying that he's committed treason for impeachment. But think about this. If Donald Trump is in office and Adam Schiff is in the Senate, and if for some reason it's possible Democrats get control of the Senate, Adam Schiff could be in the position to once again be investigating Donald Trump. And it is something that Donald Trump has not been able to escape. And I think looking at the track record, we don't have to guess. We can judge from history. It's very likely that if Donald Trump gets back in office, he's expecting to be investigated again. It happened during his tenure in office, and it happened when he was out of office. So once again, we could have that matchup, which you can't underscore it enough. Someone like Schiff, who has shown they are not afraid to do that and has quite frankly, made a name off of it.
It's quite often that we see Republicans really try to woo Donald Trump to get his backing, to get his support, perhaps their endorsement. We haven't seen Garvey do that with Trump. Why not?
It's fascinating. I mean, you heard Galen talk a little bit just about how unpopular Donald Trump is in California, so maybe he's just being practical and trying to run away from someone who's not going to get elected. And, you know, I know we say he hasn't run towards Donald Trump, but just to get a sense for the viewers of what that actually means, Garvey has not campaigned with Donald Trump. He has not been endorsed by Donald Trump. He did not attend the RNC. And at the last, one of the earlier primary debates, he wouldn't even commit to voting for Donald Trump. He said that he was going to give both candidates a look. When you think about the political climate that we're in, that is sort of an unprecedented position.
Though now he has said he'll...
Correct. Now he has, of course, changed that. But at one point, that is not a position that you hear often from a Republican candidate in Donald Trump's Republican Party. So I think one of the most surprising things tonight also was his strong defense of Donald Trump in terms of the impeachment inquiry. He repeatedly told Schiff it was unconscionable the way that he had gone after Trump. That's really different language that we had seen from him so far.
And Trump has actually used some harsh words against Garvey.
He has indeed. It was sort of a familiar line that we've heard from Donald Trump. He would ask if he would endorse him, and he said that Garvey was making a mistake by not running towards the MAGA movement and that he's not going to endorse until he gets a call from Garvey. And I was speaking to one Republican strategist who said that was just typical Trump, looking for loyalty rather than being smart or trying to make a good play here. But I think the bottom line is, you know, and we've talked about it a lot, I don't think that this is a race that Donald Trump or his team, you know, are losing sleep over. It seems pretty clear that Schiff is on a path to victory here. And quite frankly, a number of people I asked about this race just to sort of get their sense on it, they weren't even tracking it.
Oh, very interesting. All right, Olivia Rubin, always a pleasure to have you here with us. Thank you. And joining us now, ABC News contributors Amanda Renteria, a Democratic strategist, and Tricia McLaughlin, a Republican strategist. Thank you both so much for your time tonight. Of course, the election is 4 weeks away from today, and while the race in California may not be close, polls nationwide have this presidential race at a dead heat. Taking a step back now, 1 month out from this election, let's get a temperature check from both of you. Amanda, where do you think Vice President Kamala Harris stands with 1 month to go?
Well, there's a lot of work to be done. It is now about mobilization. I think they have run a really great campaign, but it really is these last 30 days where you have to hone the message, make sure your mobilization on the ground is working, and you're pushing get out the vote right now as mail is dropping. And so I think they're doing a good job, but every single day matters, especially since it's been such a short timeline for people to get to know her and Waltz and the campaign team as well. So it is hopeful for her, but there's no doubt that she has to run every single day as fast as she can.
And Tricia, what about for former President Trump?
Amanda and I might not agree on everything, but we definitely agree on that. It comes down to the nuts and bolts of politics at this point, and part of that is voter registration. Yesterday was the last day to register to vote in Pennsylvania. Republicans have gained some ground there. They were getting clobbered in 2020, but have definitely improved in that area. They almost doubled their registrations in Arizona. In Nevada, they've seen massive improvement, and in North Carolina, as well as other battleground states. So I do think that this is not your 2020 Trump campaign. There's more discipline on the ground. There's more discipline and message management from the candidate. So I do think Donald Trump is well positioned today.
And now let's shift to the Senate, which of course is top of mind for many tonight. Amanda, Democrats have to defend those 23 seats, particularly in red Montana and a trending red Ohio. Do you think Democrats will keep the Senate?
I think it's going to be very, very hard, but we have some really good candidates in these places where people know Tester. They really like to work with them. And those campaigns like Sherrod Brown, they're running from where they live, from where they are. They are smartly not necessarily getting into the national politics. And those are names that are very well known in communities and neighborhoods. And so the question is, how much will the national movement really push those states? But I will say the candidates themselves have been extremely disciplined to make sure that they're talking about what's happening in their backyards. And that's going to be a key point as people go to vote.
And Tricia, is there any race Republicans are defending that might concern you, or do you think that they're mostly on the offense here?
I think Nebraska, that could end up being a toss-up. Debbie Fischer is really fighting for her political life there. So Republicans, there's new data coming out tomorrow, so I think we'll really see where we are. But I know some Republicans are a little bit worried there. I'm very curious to see what happens with Ohio. That's my home state. Sherrod Brown, he's been in office since 2008. Bernie Moreno is a very strong candidate, and we know Trump is likely to win in Ohio by double digits. But Bernie Moreno is a relatively new candidate to Sherrod Brown, who's been in office for more than a decade at this point.
Amanda, anything in particular you're watching for in these last 4 weeks?
It really is the mobilization game. So how are really votes coming in by mail? What are the teams doing on the ground? And then the other piece that's a little bit hard to see from a national level is what message are they saying on radio, online, in those key county and districts. And I do have to say the mobilization efforts that I've seen out of the Harris-Walz campaign is they have built very good relationships with leaders on the ground, and that is going to be critical because at this point, it is neighbor to neighbor. How are you making sure to get the carpools so people can get to that ballot box? That's what I'm watching for, is what's really happening in each of these states at a county level.
Tricia, how about on your end for the GOP?
I think we really need to focus on early voting, mail-in voting, things that Republicans are not typically very good at. We can reliably get out to the polls, but we typically vote on election day, not before. So that's something that is new to Republicans, and I think our leadership really needs to be encouraging and emphasizing.
Amanda Renteria, Tricia McLaughlin, we thank you both so much for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So much more to get to here on Prime. The extremely serious threat Milton is now posing to the southeast. The storm is now growing larger as it persists on its dangerous path to Florida. The dire warnings being issued, the preparation and evacuations underway. We're on the ground and tracking the storm.
This ship is heaven. There should be no guilt on a pleasure cruise. Doctor, it's your job to keep everybody alive.
No pulse. She's in VFib. 1, 2, 3. Clear.
I have a pulse.
You're gonna be okay.
How many elephants have you killed? True natural beauty. One of the last of its kind. But this comes at a cost. 5 countries, 5 incredible real stories of adventure, danger,
We have to go.
and deceit. Where are we going next? We got this ongoing search for the animal we've been trying to find. These are the last lands. The national parks around the world that have to be saved. There.
3, 2, 1.
It's a 24/7 life together.
It's not about the fear or the risk. It's about the love of flying. 3, 2, 1.
Did you kill Mariota?
Sorry. No, I did not kill Mariota.
How did she die?
When the test came back, I thought, yeah, holy, are you kidding me?
People think she's innocent. I think she's guilty.
I'm not buying this Little Miss Innocent game.
Little Miss Innocent.
I know it wasn't me. If it wasn't me, who was it?
Only on Hulu.
The case against Sean Combs might as well just be called the freak-offs.
Freak-offs, what prosecutors described as orgies.
Sex trafficking, racketeering conspiracy, interstate transportation for prostitution.
The AK-47s, the 1,000 bottles of baby oil.
Diddy in court, pleading not guilty and denied bail.
This very powerful man in the music industry decided to use his power to hurt others. Time's up.
Diddy, drugs, lies, and freak-offs. Now streaming on Hulu.
Welcome back. Tonight, we are tracking Hurricane Milton, that historic Category 5 storm churning toward the Florida coast tonight with winds up to 165 miles per hour. Governor DeSantis is warning residents, get out now. President Biden called it a matter of life and death. And time is running out at this hour. Hurricane Milton is a monster storm about 480 miles from Tampa, where the eye is likely to make landfall late tomorrow night or Thursday morning with a record storm surge as high as 15 feet. It could be the first direct hit in Tampa from a major hurricane in more than a century. A team of hurricane hunters feeling the force of this historic hurricane flying into the eye wall to collect data. Police in Treasure Island, just outside Tampa Bay, driving through neighborhoods with emergency warnings urging people to evacuate now. And just take a look at the gridlock getting out. Bumper to bumper traffic for miles on I-75 near Naples. Tonight, more than 1,300 Florida gas stations are out of gas. Our team is standing by across Florida as this historic hurricane gets closer to making landfall. And we begin with our chief meteorologist, Ginger Z, in Tampa for us. Ginger, time this all out.
Yes, Lindsay, we have to start with what's going to happen here. So Tampa's right behind me, and I just want to say on the northwest side of the storm, that left side, which is not the dirty side, we would get offshore winds. And so this big bay will still pile a ton of water up on this little peninsula I'm on all of the homes on the boulevard here that so many people know, and in St. Pete. So when you see this forecast, because of the little nudge south, I want you to know that 10 to 15 feet of surge is still in play. Not just here in Tampa Bay, but I'll go ahead and tell you all of it. Let's start with the satellite image. That satellite image is showing Milton just passing north of Cancun. It's about 450 miles to my southwest from Tampa Bay here. Landfall will be late Wednesday night through early Thursday. So we got about 30 hours before landfall, but it's not going to be pretty in about 18 hours. You'll start to see the impacts. Now, it still looks like it would make landfall as a Cat 3, and the category doesn't matter as much as we close in on what's going to happen here. The impacts are going to be so much more widespread than that cone. Look at the timing. Thursday afternoon is when it exits into the Atlantic again, right over the Space Coast. So you could have hurricane force gusts all the way across central Florida, terrorizing it there. That's why we've got Daytona up to Jacksonville Beach, down to Vero Beach, Orlando and Melbourne, over to Tampa, Cedar Key, and Fort Myers, all in a hurricane warning. But tropical storm watch is still up to Charleston. Now, I wanted to just bring you all of the impacts, right? So let's talk surge first. It's the 10 to 15 feet around here. Sarasota, Bradenton, really concerned about you. You're in that dirty side. Venice is as well, Rotunda. Fort Myers has upped their surge to 8 to 12, and Naples has gone up to 5 to 8 feet. Even Jacksonville Beach, with that turnaround, with the wind pushing the water onshore, could see 2 to 5 feet of surge. Now let's time it out. This short-term model has some of the wind gusts like St. Pete Beach up to 115 at 11 p.m., nearly 100 at Sarasota just before midnight there. And then it moves right over, and Orlando has gusts of 60 plus. Here's the other problem. It's been really wet. Tampa Bay in the top 10 wettest seasons on record already, probably going to get to the top wettest year on record. And now we're getting up to 18 inches of rain on top of all of this. I think in a place along I-4, you're going to see power outages, but you also see trees down, even with a 60-plus mile-per-hour wind, because it's been so wet. So, Lindsay, there are a lot of factors going through here, but the worst of this really starts in about 24 hours.
I know you'll be monitoring it for us. Ginger Z, our thanks to you as always. And in Tampa Bay, the mayor there has a dire warning to those who stay behind. You are going to die. Whit Johnson reports on the preps and evacuations as this monster storm bears down on Tampa Bay.
Tonight, mandatory evacuations on both coasts of Florida. Highways jammed. Millions heeding the calls to get out of Hurricane Milton's path before it's too late. Tampa's airport already deserted. Orlando's packed, set to close tomorrow. Authorities filling Tropicana Field with cots, a base camp for first responders. Governor DeSantis mobilizing some 8,000 National Guard troops.
This is probably the largest National Guard mobilization in advance of a storm in Florida history.
The monster hurricane strengthening back into a Category 5 in the Gulf. Hurricane hunters jolted by extreme turbulence as they flew into Milton's eye wall. A storm taking aim at the Tampa metro area, home to more than 3 million people, and hasn't seen a direct hit from a major hurricane in more than 100 years.
Say you're in a single-story home, 12 feet is above that house. So if you're in it, basically that's the coffin that you're in.
Many of the streets here in Tampa are still lined with debris. All of this left over from Hurricane Helene, which came with a record storm surge of up to 8 feet in some places. But if you take a look above from our drone camera, you could just imagine what could happen to these homes with a surge nearly twice as high.
It was above the baseboard.
Tani Tahirai just finished gutting parts of his home after Helene.
This is what's left.
This is what's left out of the house. I was able to salvage.
Now forced to evacuate again with his wife and 3 children.
They're kids. This is their safety, right? This is when they come for safety. So when that's threatened, they're gonna cry. And not just because they lost toys or clothes or their favorite shoes, but they cry because this is their safe zone.
Tampa General Hospital, which treats the area's most critical patients, will remain operational, hoping the aqua fence they used to keep the surge away during Helene will also hold up against Milton.
Nothing potentially like this, a storm surge up to 15 feet, has happened in our lifetimes.
That's right.
How much does that concern you?
Well, I think the hospital's ready, right? It's concerning, but I think we're ready.
Lots of concern there and beyond. Whit Johnson joins us now on the ground. Whit, give us a sense of what you're seeing firsthand.
Yeah, Lindsay, this Tampa neighborhood is one of many almost deserted. The counties are actually providing buses to help take people to shelters if needed. We spoke with families who hunkered down and rode out the storm during Hurricane Helene, but now tell us they're evacuating. They're not taking any chances with all of this dangerous debris and the potential threat of a 15-foot storm surge. Lindsay?
Sounds wise. All right, Whit Johnson, our thanks to you. In the meantime, so many families are heeding the call to evacuate, finding themselves stuck in traffic and with gas running low. Victor Keno reports from Sarasota tonight.
Tonight, police in Florida driving through neighborhoods, warning residents to leave while they still can.
Quickly secure your home or business and safely evacuate the area.
The race to escape slowed by traffic jams and long lines for gas. More than 1,300 stations statewide running out of fuel, according to Gas Buddy.
It's been I would say, a tremendous task to get gas.
There is a desperate struggle to find fuel. Some gas stations, like this one in Sarasota, dry their pumps wrapped in plastic to protect from water damage.
State troopers now escorting tankers to resupply gas stations. For the second time in 2 weeks, Jan Holman evacuating her home of 18 years in the historic fishing village of Cortez, Florida.
What did the neighborhood look like after Helene?
It's kind of heartbreaking.
Hurricane Helene flooded her home with nearly 3 feet of water.
Helene did so much damage here, and now here comes Milton. What's that like, that 1-2 punch?
It's like, are you kidding me? How can that happen? We're just praying that something changes at the last minute.
Her trunk now packed to the brim, evacuating again.
Lindsay, we have been all over Sarasota. This is one of the few remaining gas stations with any fuel left, but it is drying up quickly. A little bit of a line is forming here as well as that window to evacuate quickly closes. Lindsay?
It is shrinking fast. Victor, thank you. Joining us now once again, the Deputy Director of the Hurricane Center, Jamie Rome. Thank you for coming on again with us. Give us a sense of what your biggest concern is as this powerful hurricane continues to turn toward the coast.
My biggest concern is people focusing too much on the exact track with a storm that's going to expand in size as it approaches the Florida Peninsula, and you're going to get, you're going to get these hazards that are going to be somewhat removed from the center. For example, where the track goes, I think the heaviest rain and the flooding potential for inland is going to be along into the north of where the center tracks, and so I'm worried people are just paying too much they're overemphasizing the exact track.
And we saw how quickly the storm strengthened. What about Milton is different?
I think it's going to be powerful and large. So what we're used to seeing is storms that are very, very intense but small, compact. Or we're used to seeing big hurricanes that are weak. I think with Milton we're going to see a strong hurricane that is also quite large. And it's going to be interacting with a cold front as it crosses the Florida Peninsula, which is going to produce some patterns in the hazards that people might not be used to seeing. And so the traditional way people view hurricanes, I don't think it's going to play out the way people will expect.
What's your message tonight to Florida residents?
If you've been ordered to evacuate, please do so. If you haven't been ordered to evacuate and you're in a hurricane warning, make sure you're in a structurally sound home, with nice building codes and, good protection on the windows and glass. And if you don't have that luxury, try to find a friend or family member that you can stay with.
I'm sure there are a number of things, but what concerns you the most? Is it the proximity to Helene? Is it the storm surge? Is it the winds?
Unfortunately, all of those hazards are in play. And so, at the coast, clearly the storm surge is going to be the biggest concern. At the coast, you can see here this purple area. We're predicting 10 to 15 feet somewhere in that area, not everywhere in that area. At wherever that 10 to 15 feet occurs, it's going to be the biggest concern there. But then once you shift inland to the rain, let's look at this heavy rain. So everything in this purple area is high risk of excessive rain and flooding. And it's hard for people who live in Florida, where it rains all the time, to understand how rain is threatening. But this is not a typical afternoon thunderstorm rain. The rain rates in these tropical systems is often 3-4 inches per hour, which is 2 and 3 times the rain rate that you're typically seeing in a thunderstorm. If all that rain falls on concrete, right? Think about all the buildup that we've had here in Florida. You basically get an instant flood.
Deputy Director of the Hurricane Center, Jamie Rome, we thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tonight, with Hurricane Milton quickly approaching and just days after Hurricane Helene slammed into the U.S., former President Trump once again targeted FEMA today as millions try to recover. Vice President Harris then blasted him for spreading dangerous misinformation. Here's Rachel Scott.
Tonight, with Florida bracing for a monster storm, as Georgia and North Carolina reel from the effects of the last one, Vice President Kamala Harris blasting Donald Trump for spreading falsehoods about FEMA, which has been on the ground for days. Harris appearing today on ABC's The View.
What do you think the effect of these lies are, and why is he doing this?
Well, it's profound, and it is the height of irresponsibility and, frankly, callousness. Yeah. I fear that he really lacks empathy on a very basic level, to care about the suffering of other people and then understand the role of a leader is not to beat people down, it's to lift people up.
Absolutely.
Especially in a time of crisis.
But today, Trump again talking about FEMA.
They said that there was just no FEMA. You virtually don't see anybody from FEMA.
But our team has been on the ground in the storm zone for days, personally witnessing the efforts of FEMA and the National Guard. Homeowners who have told us FEMA has been there to help them. Today, President Biden accusing Trump of misleading people and creating panic.
That's going to sound, use an old phrase, it's un-American. It really is. People are scared to death. People know their lives are at stake. All that they've worked for, all that they own, all that they value.
A lot of fear, some of it warranted, some from that misinformation. Rachel Scott joins us now. And Rachel, I know you have some interesting results from a new poll.
Yeah, this race has been locked in a dead heat. We are 4 weeks out from Election Day, believe it or not, but a new New York Times Santa poll that's out tonight is showing some movement here. So I want to walk you through these numbers. Vice President Kamala Harris holding a slight lead over Donald Trump at 49%, the former president at 46%. Also notable tonight, it's the first time this poll has shown more voters view Harris as the candidate representing change. 46% to 44% for Donald Trump. Trump out on the campaign trail. He is the one that has been pitching himself as the candidate of change. We're starting to see that slide now.
So interesting, considering both of them can make an argument for the other being essentially an incumbent. Yep. All right, Rachel Scott for us. Thanks so much. And we are also following breaking news from the Justice Department saying late today they have thwarted an alleged terror plot targeting Election Day here in the U.S. Let's get right to ABC's Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas. Pierre, tell us what you're learning about this alleged plot.
Well, Lindsay, it's a new, potentially chilling terror plot stopped by the FBI.
The Justice Department charging 27-year-old Nasir Ahmad Tahiti, an Afghan national living in Oklahoma, with plotting to kill Americans on Election Day on behalf of ISIS. According to newly unsealed charges, Tahiti and a juvenile were arrested yesterday after attempting to buy 2 AK-47-style assault rifles, 10 magazines, and 500 rounds of ammunition from undercover FBI operatives. When arrested, DOJ claims that Tahiti confirmed the attack was planned for Election Day, targeting large gatherings of people during which he and the juvenile were expected to die as martyrs. DOJ officials say the investigation intensified after the FBI searched Tahiti's phone and discovered, Linsey, communication with an ISIS recruiter.
So grateful for their watchful eyes. Pierre Thomas, our thanks to you. New reporting tonight from journalist Bob Woodward in his new book called War. The veteran reporter wrote that during the early days of the pandemic, then President Trump secretly sent a number of those rare COVID test machines to Vladimir Putin for Putin's personal use. Tonight, Trump is denying that claim to our Jonathan Karl.
As the COVID pandemic was raging and the government could not produce enough tests for the American people, then President Donald Trump secretly sent rare COVID test machines to Russia, to Vladimir Putin, for the dictator's personal use. That's according to Bob Woodward in a soon-to-be-published book called War. Woodward writes that Putin told Trump to keep it a secret, saying, quote, "I don't want you to tell anybody because people will get mad at you, not me." Kamala Harris seized on Woodward's new reporting today, talking about it in an interview with Howard Stern.
Everybody was scrambling to get these kits, the tests, the COVID test kits.
Couldn't get them.
Couldn't get them.
Right.
Couldn't get them anywhere.
Right.
And this guy who is president of the United States is sending them to Russia, to a murderous dictator for his personal use? This person who wants to be president again, who secretly is helping out an adversary when the American people are dying by the hundreds every day and in need of relief.
Trump often boasts about his close relationship with Putin.
I got along very well with Putin. I spoke to him a lot. Then they say how nice I was to Russia. No, I wasn't nice, but we got along. We had a good relationship, which is a good thing, not a bad thing.
Woodward also reports that Trump has had, quote, multiple phone calls with Putin since he left the White House, including at least one call earlier this year. I spoke to Trump today, and he denied it all.
He said was that you've had a number of conversations with Putin. Is that true? I mean, I imagine that could be. No?
That's false.
Oh, really?
That's false.
So you haven't spoken to him since you left the White House?
No, I have not.
And the other thing he said is that you had provided some Abbott test machines to Putin back during the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, false.
Trump also had some choice words for Woodward, calling him a storyteller who, quote, has lost his marbles. Woodward, though, of course, is one of the most respected journalists of our time. And Trump, over the years, including currently in this campaign, has frequently praised Vladimir Putin and boasted about having a good relationship with him. Linsey?
All right, Jonathan Karl. Police are investigating a reported mugging involving Dodgers starting pitcher Walker Buehler. He and his wife were at a horse racing track last month when police say they were suddenly surrounded by a mob of people. One mugger stole his $100,000 watch. Police say 2 similar incidents were reported that same day. This also comes just weeks after 49ers rookie Ricky Pearsall was shot after an alleged mugging. Buehler is still scheduled to start tonight's playoff game against the Padres. A new trial date is set for the suspect in the shooting of teen Ralph Yarl due to a mental health evaluation. A judge ordered a mental health assessment for 85-year-old Andrew Lester to see whether or not he is deemed fit to stand trial. Lester's trial, originally scheduled for yesterday, was delayed indefinitely as a result. This comes after Lester's attorney filed a motion requesting the suspect undergoes a mental health check, claiming his health conditions could impair his ability to understand the legal proceedings. The trial has now been pushed to February of next year. Overseas tonight, Israel is expanding its ground assault in southern Lebanon, sending in thousands more troops. Prime Minister Netanyahu says they've killed Hezbollah's longtime leader Hassan Nasrallah and his new successor as well. ABC's Matt Gutman is in Israel tonight.
Tonight, after a hobbled Hezbollah launched dozens of rockets at Israel's port city of Haifa, the IDF announcing they're now expanding their ground operation in southern Lebanon, deploying thousands of additional troops to support the thousands already working to clear Hezbollah from the border with Israel. In drone video shared online, you can see the small town near the border reduced to rubble. Troops raising the Israeli flag in this village along the Lebanese border. In the militia stronghold of southern Beirut, Israeli airstrikes and evacuation orders to civilians to flee their homes. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying the group is on its knees.
We've degraded Hezbollah's capabilities. We took out thousands of terrorists, including Nasrallah himself, and Nasrallah's replacement, and the replacement of his replacement.
Israel has assassinated almost all of Hezbollah's top officials. And today, a surviving leader, Qasem Naim, vowing to fight on, but also calling for a ceasefire. The State Department skeptical.
Where have they been for a year? For a year, the world has been calling on Hezbollah to stop the attacks across the border into Israel.
Matt Gutman in Tel Aviv for us. Still much more to get to here on Prime tonight. Coming up, at least 14 states sue TikTok alleging harm to children. But next, they're running through violent scenarios that could play out in November. We introduce you to the election workers dedicated to ensuring the voting process as we launch our new series, Protecting Your Vote.
When I flick this switch, there'll be a horrible noise and a terrible odor. Will it hurt? Pain like you've never known. Oh! Seems risky. I am much satisfied.
What? You scared? This is happiness.
We love Halloween.
Ah!
Got me.
He's a bit silly.
Turning the machine off. Do you feel good?
The new season of The Old Man is an excellent thriller.
Things are about to get serious.
Compelling, entertaining, an incredibly tense ride.
You aren't going to see it coming.
FX's The Old Man. All new Thursdays at 10 on FX. Stream on Hulu.
Welcome back. Tonight, we learned of a foiled Election Day terror plot after a man planned to kill Americans in the name of ISIS. The Justice Department announced charges against the Afghan citizen residing in Oklahoma City. And that's just one of the threats that is known, with millions across the country expected to go out and vote on November 5th. And it's threats both foreign and domestic that the nation's election workers are now trying to guard against. Tonight, we introduce you to some of those who are dedicated to ensuring the integrity of the voting process. The first in a month-long series called Protecting Your Vote. We start with our senior national correspondent, Steve Osinsami, and his look at how election officials are protecting themselves and the vote.
I can remember when this red light here at the old courthouse was the only red light in the county. And now everything's changed. We've grown so much.
These are strange times for this country's election workers, who are just everyday people like Deidre Holden, with the voice full of sweet Georgia tea.
We are headed over to our first poll worker training for the November election.
For the last 17 years, she's directed elections in Paulding County, Georgia, a suburb northwest of Atlanta.
Welcome. We're glad you're here. You are the holder and the keeper of our democracy, and that is a very precious thing that we never need to take for granted. So I'm going to ask my election cheer squad to come to the stage. Y'all need pom-poms. Everybody needs pom-pom signs. I want enthusiasm. I want y'all to act like you're glad to be here. I want you to act like you're proud to be an American. Go. We're in elections, couldn't be prouder. If you can't hear us, we'll yell a little louder. We're in elections, couldn't be prouder. If you can't hear us, we'll yell a little louder.
This feels more like a pep rally, reminding her poll workers that democracy is in their hands and that it's something to celebrate. But for the first time ever,
I demand that I vote. Give me my ID, and I want to vote now.
they're role-playing a month before November 5th.
I'm gonna need to call my husband. Would you like my chair?
They've been training for the worst. Screaming voters,
Can I vote now?
deadly packages, and active shooters.
Most important thing is to get those voters out and get them to safety, or put them in a room, get in the room, barricade the door, and fight for your life if you have to. And I never thought I'd ever have to say those words. I'm sorry.
Nothing to be sorry for. This is not the way it's supposed to be.
No, it is not.
Even though this is still a county where the red team always wins, she says some people here started threatening her life and scaring her staff with frightening emails after Joe Biden won the statewide vote in 2020.
If you can read me some of this.
And I won't be explicit
Of course,
because
yeah.
that's not who I am.
Yeah.
You know, when you start reading it, the first thing is the election is rigged. We're all complicit. One of the things that always stands out to me in this email is when you get to the part here that says, we'll make the Boston bombings look like child's play at the poll sites in this county. You just effing wait.
And it was sent to you specifically?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Our marshal said, I want all of your employees to park up against the building because if someone comes and sets off a bomb in a car, that will soften the blow.
The cars
Detonates.
will be a shield.
Yes. People have not gotten over 2020, and it has spilled over into 2024. And I have prepared my staff. I said 2020 was nothing compared to what we're about to go through.
Go ahead. Now you go.
They had to put up new cameras and keep a bag of Narcan near the mailbox for absentee ballots in case someone tries to hurt her people with an envelope of deadly drugs.
Do you have a panic button in this office?
I do. I'm looking at it right now.
Wow.
Yeah. And I never had that.
You had escorts, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Yeah. Escorts
And,
home from the office?
My husband was with me.
Yeah.
We just celebrated 38 years of marriage, and he never misses a day of work. And when I got up at 3:30 election morning, he gets up and he starts getting ready, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
He says, I'm going with you.
Yeah, he's not leaving you alone today.
Yeah.
What I did know, that
Okay.
that whatever she went through, I was gonna be there with her. And that she wasn't gonna go through it alone. And nobody was gonna get to do anything without going through me. And what I could do, I don't know, but I was gonna be there. So that's what we done. She loves this so much. I would support her right, if I had to come to work with her every day.
Here I am. I love you so much. Love you. And that was when it became very real to me that elections are not what they used to be.
They all feel for what happened to 2 Georgia election workers in the city who were terrorized by a fire of lies, wrongly accused of stuffing ballots on camera. Somehow, people who were watching this live video of the 2 women counting votes were claiming that they were seeing things that weren't real.
I've always told my girls in this office, I call them my girls, they're like my children. It's my job to protect them. And I'm gonna fight with everything I have. And I don't ever want it to come to that. But I fear that that's what it's coming to.
It's a tough time to work elections across America. The U.S. Justice Department says it's tracking hostile threats to election officials and other public servants every day. In September, and for the second time this year, someone mailed mysterious powders to election officials in 22 states. The senders would often call themselves the United States Traitor Elimination Army. One of those packages was mailed to this man, arguably the most famous state election official in America.
I hope that all my fellow Georgians understand that the people working at the polls, those poll workers, they're your neighbors. They're good people, just like you.
Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger says the threats haven't stopped since he refused demands from the former president to break the law and change election results when Trump lost the state.
I want voters to understand in Georgia that we're going to have an accurate election. I also understand that half the people aren't going to like the results.
This year, he says he needs to send Narcan to protect poll workers at every election location in Georgia.
We're threat assessing every day.
Your own personal security, how has that been?
Well, many of us had death threats.
Okay.
And it's one of those things that's highly unfortunate. And one of the things that we've worked so hard on for the last, 4 years is if voters had concern about certain aspects of the voting system, we wanted to shore that up with good policy.
After he refused to rig the election, the former president's supporters in the State House removed him from the state election board and put in 3 people who Donald Trump has famously called his pit bulls.
3 people are all pit bulls fighting for honesty, transparency, and victory.
They're now trying to change some of the rules a month before the November election. For example, requiring poll workers to hand count ballots that the machines have already totaled. Raffensperger says this will only promise delays on election night and says it's too late to do all this now.
We've worked for 4 years to get you quick results. All of a sudden, you added this additional complication, and a tremendous burden on these folks that are really public service. I'm doing my job. Our folks are doing our job. Counties are doing their job. So I would tell them, the state election board, do your job.
It's very clear you wish they would do better, in your opinion.
We do our job.
I'm called to be a public servant. I love my people, I love my voters, and it's what I want to do. And I promise you, there is no thought that ever goes through my mind of not counting a vote or cheating. I wouldn't know how to throw an election if you paid me to.
In the suburbs, Deidre Holden says she's ready. Early voting starts in less than 2 weeks. And she says she's praying that her staff and her voters stay safe.
I think every American needs to know that we are the United States of America, and that if we don't unite, it doesn't matter. We need to bring back the love everyone. It's not about the politics.
Quite an eye-opening report. Our thanks to Steve Osinsami for that. That is our show for tonight. I'm Linsey Davis. ABC News Live is here for you all night with the latest news, context, and analysis. Thanks so much for streaming with us.
The case against Sean Combs might as well just be called the freak-offs.
Freak-offs, what prosecutors described as orgies.
Sex